The road woes continue for the Bucks, who face a very, very bleak turn to the new calendar year. We dig into the latest loss to the Timberwolves coming up next on Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. I'm Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis and once again by Frank Madden. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL bets all season long. Thanks to everyone as well who has helped make the Locked On Network the number one podcast network in the industry, and all the everydayers out there who have been with us through a very, very challenging start to the season for the Bucks, which is where we begin, guys. What is this, 8 straight losses on the road now for the Bucks, who have not won a road game since, well, do both of you know when the last time the Bucks won on the road was?
Well, when you said road woes, I was just like, we could probably just say woes, just general woes. Feels like they've been awful at home too.
Not great there.
Man, I'm trying to think back. I mean, I know they won in Toronto early this season. I'm trying to remember. Was it a Giannis game? Because they won the home game with Giannis against the Nets.
It was a Giannis game. I'll tell you that much.
And
Frank,
then
you're doing better than me. I'm like, when I can't remember when.
Was it? I guess it was before his first injury, right? Because they lost
It was, yeah.
How long ago?
Man, yeah, it's sad.
You're really surprised, Camille, it was that long ago.
It's just, it's been a lot of losing and whatnot going on, and no back-to-back wins since the end of October and all the things. Yeah. But
was it Indiana?
They haven't won a road game since before then is crazy.
It wasn't Indiana, but I forget where it is on the calendar. It was November 10th in Dallas. And was that the day after Indiana?
No, I don't think so.
No, Indiana was early November, like the 3rd or something.
Well,
yeah, there was
still early too. But yeah, November 10th is the last time they won against, at the time, a very bad Mavericks team.
Right. Who had no players. Yeah.
So we got that.
Hey,
so we got that one for us.
That Pacers win on the road was the last road win before the Dallas road win. So, you got that.
Which was a week prior to the day. So we got that. We got the fact that, hey, if you do win tomorrow in Indy against the Pacers and then win again Friday in Memphis against the Grizzlies, you're basically at the 2-month anniversary of the last time you won back-to-back games too. So things are going exceptionally well for the team so far to open up the season.
And I mean, Indy, there's no way they'd be favored in Indy, right? As bad as Indy has been, like Siakam. I mean, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they still have
Siakam's like healthy. Yeah. I don't know that they have. I mean, Is TJ McConnell back yet? If TJ McConnell's not playing, you have a chance. But probably not a good one. But yeah, I'm sure Pacer fans are licking their chops at the possibility of beating Miles Turner.
If you're the Pacers too, aren't you like, at this point, we know what it is. We don't have Tyrese Halliburton for the season. We want to lose, except for the 4 games where we play the Bucks. Like, let's just win those and lose every other game.
It's funny because as I've been looking at the schedule, like they dug themselves such a hole that I was kind of like, well, I hope they win random games because I don't want the Pacers to get like the 3rd pick in the draft or whatever it is. And I'm not really sure. My assumption has been that they've had a lot of injuries, but my assumption has been that they will not be aggressive in. Well, I was going to say they will not be aggressive in bringing people back. I don't know to what extent they would like tank, but like,
yeah.
I mean, it's too early to like rest guys who are healthy, obviously.
Yes.
And like, I think they owe their fans, obviously, like, like to try. And as we saw, I mean, it's not like this team is, I don't think that team is like quitting or anything like that. Like there's obviously infrastructure and a culture, even as they've been losing a lot of games. So yeah, definitely 2 teams that are disappointing in very different ways. right now. And if you're the Pacers and a Pacer fan, you're probably like, well, whatever, this was always basically kind of a reset year for them anyway.
To answer your question, TJ McConnell is back. So I would imagine it's going to be Pacers plus 13.
Yeah, it's over.
Yeah.
I suppose we should talk about what we witnessed last night and transition to that. So the road losing streak continues. The overall woes continue. And, this felt like, Camille, I think it's you and me that joked about it too, coming into this. Doc and a few others have made it clear. It's not a road trip because they're returning home Christmas Eve and part of Christmas Day, but they're away from home for 5 games. And we kind of mentioned, based on everything we'd seen this season, it would be fitting for the Bucks to beat Minnesota and then lose the next 4 games of this trip. And for a while, it looked like that was going to happen. It did feel like a classic trap game because I think the Timberwolves have the Knicks tomorrow or their next game on the schedule, just beat the Thunder on Friday night. And it was kind of playing out that way until a 20-0 run in the third quarter basically cemented any chance for the Bucks to hang on and beat the Timberwolves.
It did. I watched the first half live, and I was feeling pretty good about the way the Bucks were performing in the game. I was like, the ball movement feels really good. The starting lineup made more sense given who's available for the team than what we saw in their previous outing. They were getting threes up. Things were looking pretty good for them. And I was like, okay, but Minnesota hasn't shot the ball well from 3. So that's probably going to change a little bit come the second half. But if the Bucks keep playing this way, it should be pretty good vibes. I had a Packers podcast to do, so I didn't see the third quarter live, and I looked over and I was like, "Wait a second, how are the Bucks down?" Oh, right. Wait, what just happened? What happened? So when I went back to watch it, I just could not believe the collapse that happened during that run.
Couldn't believe it.
No, you know what? I could, but I couldn't. Does that make sense? Where it's like things were going so well, it's like just finish the game, and it just didn't go that way. The Bucks were doing such a good job, it felt like, on the offensive glass, not allowing the Wolves to get second chance opportunities. You saw that starting to crack in the third quarter and the fourth quarter for that fact. You saw them making shots. The Bucks started getting a little ISO heavy, and then when they did get the good looks, they weren't falling for them anymore. So it was just like everything that couldn't go wrong started to go wrong, and then the things within the Bucks' control, they couldn't even knock down those shots. So that third quarter run really is what flipped the game. And also maybe a little bit more Ryan Rollins could have helped a little bit earlier, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah, this was a rare game where the Bucks actually had a higher offensive rebound rate than the other team, which you would not expect given, some of the size that Minnesota has and the fact that the Bucks are really bad at both sides of that equation. But it seems like kind of there was an implicit bargain here, with the size of the starting 5, starting Kuz with Bobby and Miles. Okay, if you can't at least hold your own on the glass or defensive glass, at least with that group, right, then you really have no hope here, playing kind of, everybody kind of as big as you can to start the game. And so, that obviously helped them in the first half. But let's be honest, the real thing that helped them was Minnesota going 0 for 14 from 3 to start the game.
Yeah.
That was
13. I think the first one was their 14th.
Yeah, from Dante. And so, your defense is going to look good when the other team makes 0 3-pointers, right? It felt a bit like the second half against Boston, right? Which is oh, great, we can just leave guys open and they just don't make shots. That's cool. But 60 points in the first half, obviously was definitely a positive against a team that, did you trust the Bucks to score well against a Minnesota team that obviously has defensive personnel to trouble you? McDaniel's getting hurt should have helped in the second half. And then, what did they score? 40 points in the entire second half, I think, including that 15 in the third quarter, which, was ultimately kind of just the killer. Although, they were in it in the fourth quarter as well. So again, the little positive you can take about they're not just quitting. But yeah, the run was just brutal, and there were a number of kind of reloads and second chances. And Mike Conley hits the third 3-point attempt of a possession because they couldn't end the possession with a rebound. So So kind of just similar, issues that we've seen, kind of throughout the season, obviously with second chances. And, the fact that Minnesota ended up making, I think they were 14 out of 40. Yeah, 14 of 45 from three. And the Bucks were 13 of 45 from three. I mean, talk about a bad game to, have a rare off shooting night. Like if you shoot average by your standards from three in this game, like you win. But you managed to actually, do worse than a team that missed their first 13 threes, which, again, the Bucks are generally a good 3-point shooting team. So you wouldn't expect this to happen, that to be the issue. But once again, they just sort of they just kind of couldn't do enough stuff, even when they did some things better than usual. And when the opponent kind of gave them, a bit of an opening as well. And, the free throws in the second quarter in particular were obviously a huge benefit in terms of giving them a chance to get cheap points and kind of maintain that lead, even as Minnesota started to make some threes. And I don't know that there was anything like, replicable per se, like the Wolves got caught for some like random off ball fouls. And, it was stuff that you expect. We've been used to seeing the Bucks get called for, but hey, silver linings, 2 straight games, first time all year, the Bucks have committed fewer fouls than their opponent in 2 straight games.
Woo, we need some applause or some kind of effect.
Yeah, exactly. So we got that going for us.
There you go.
There you go. And I was looking at the fouling kind of trends in their first, let's see, I think it was like first 21 games or something like that. They had fewer fouls than the opponent just once. And now they've done it 4 times in the last, call it 8 games or so, which again has not translated into team success per se. But again, if you're going to try to, architect your way out of a deep hole into maybe a, medium-sized hole, or maybe from a deep grave into a shallow grave, let's try to get to shallow grave. If we could try to upgrade to a shallow grave.
Try to get from sinkhole to pothole. That's what we're looking at.
We're trying to get, we don't want the sinkhole where, cars get start falling into it. We just want a pothole that screws up your some rims and tires. So they are at least cleaning up some of the fouling, which, when you compare how have things gotten so much worse this year than last year, aside from obviously kind of the Giannis kind of part of the equation, the fouling has been a problem all year. And last year they were a team that avoided, giving kind of free points away, avoided letting teams get easy points at the foul line. And this year it's been obviously a huge, huge issue. So, maybe a little bit of improvement there. Giannis can't just save everybody from committing defensive fouls. So again, just trying to get some better habits there. I think in terms of, what could reasonably improve when we talk about the rebounding problems, the turnover problems, the fouling problems. I mean, the fouling problems, I think, are to me would be like the first thing that you would try to clean up. And it's hard because especially given the lack of size, you have guys who need to kind of play on the edge a little bit. Like, how do you play with physicality without just fouling all the time? It's hard to do. But they did it last year to a large extent, with worse defensive personnel, basically. So cleaning up the fouling, maybe a little bit of a positive trend there. And then I think, again, at this point, are we going to expect that Doc's going to make offensive rebounding a priority? No. But again, defensive rebounding, play bigger, try to gang tackle on the glass, and at least prevent the other team from getting a lot of, easy second chance points. It hurt them during the run, but overall it was actually, the Bucks had a higher offensive rebound rate, as I said, than the Wolves did tonight, which, is net a positive. If you told us that, right, that you would have, fewer fouls and a better offensive rebound rate than the other guys, you would say oh, Bucks might actually have a chance to win this game. But, unfortunately here, this is where the unusual issue of 3-point shooting actually really hurt them. Although turnovers also, we can talk about turnovers because especially late in the game, just some decision-making turnovers was again a problem.
Yeah, turnover's a big issue. And one of the other things that is going to be discussed heavily and has been is what you mentioned as well, Camille, in some of the minutes played and doled out to some of these individual players, especially in the backcourts. We'll get into that conversation coming up next. Nobody knows your money goals better than you. Robinhood puts you in control of your money with tools that work as hard as you do. Locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. Trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto, all on one platform. So you can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood's Legends Advanced tools. Or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself, expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. All right, the turnover number we can get into here is that was big. 23 points scored off of turnovers from the Timberwolves, so they were plus 16 there. I mean, you mentioned the shooting variance the Bucks didn't get and to match what Minnesota did. I think the Timberwolves were 10 of 22 on threes in the second half, and the Bucks made just 5. But, you know, a game that you lose by a single possession, you're minus 16 on points scored off of turnovers, where both teams shot basically the same from the field, free throws relatively the same as well. It was those types of miscues. And I know a lot of times there's an army of Kevin Porter Jr. defenders that take this as you are attacking Kevin Porter Jr. and comparing him to Ryan Rollins. But 6 turnovers is too much from your point guard when you don't have a margin for error. And after the game, Doc Rivers even said, I'm not worried about it, and has talked about Kevin's not playing for himself and playing within the system. And I get that. And I know a lot of this is him trying to make extra plays. Not all of it is. And when you know, look, we can't spot you these points. We can't put teams out in transition by turning the ball over, and we have to value our possessions because that other guy who's very important is not playing. You can't routinely get some of these turnover figures from KPJ. He's played in, 10 games now this season, and I think in 3 of them he's had 1 or 0 turnovers. The other, it's routinely been 6 or 7 turnovers. I think it's a stretch of 3 out of 4 games now where he's had at least 4 turnovers in each of these games. They just seem to come. I wouldn't even say at the most inopportune times because some of these games, it's always inopportune for the Bucks. But that's a number that it just has to come down, regardless of what Doc Rivers says. They are important, and it's not just KPJ, it's everyone. You need to be worried about the turnovers because this was a team that was okay at protecting the ball in the early going. November was a disaster, and that number has just continued to plummet, where they have been one of the worst in turnover rate this season.
You're not wrong about that at all. And we talk about the margins a lot, like the Bucks have to continue to win on the margins. We've talked about how there are too many games this season so far where the Bucks don't get as many shot attempts as their opponent. When you're turning the ball over and giving away possessions, that leads into it. And for KPJ in particular, when you are the starting point guard, there's a lot more on your plate. Like Kyle Kuzma had 3 turnovers himself in the first half. Kevin Porter Jr. had 2 in the first half. AJ Green had 2 in the first half. You really don't want to see that from AJ Green, who really doesn't tend to have the ball too often. But that's the situation. Like, there is going to be more asked of Kevin Porter Jr. by stake of the position that he plays as point guard, the guy who has the ball in his hand more often than not. And KPJ has talked about the turnovers himself and just saying, like, some of them come because he's just moving too fast. He's like, I see it, and I'm like, I know I can get it there, but something happens and he doesn't get it there exactly. In the game against Minnesota last night, some of them were even just like, hey, foot's on the line. The ball's going back the other way. So at least they weren't as many live ball turnovers, it felt like, during the game, but still too many at the time. And again, you got to win on the margins. We talked about the third quarter and how that was really like the changing point of the game for the team with that big run that Minnesota reeled off. The turnovers played a part in it for sure. The Bucks had 4 in the third, or 5 in the third quarter alone there of their, 18 for the entire game right there. So when you have a bulk of them in that one quarter, in that third quarter, in addition to the fact that you allow the Timberwolves to hit the offensive glass a bit harder than they had so far in the game. Like, in the first half alone, the Timberwolves only had 5 offensive rebounds for the first 2 quarters. The third quarter came out and they had 6 offensive rebounds in the third quarter alone. So from them being able to get extra possessions from the reloads, plus the turnovers there in the game, like it was just a perfect storm of problems against the Bucks that led to benefit for the Timberwolves. And for the turnover thing, like I give KPJ some slack for it to a degree, even though, like I just said, he's a point guard. You expect more of him, and I do. But he does have a very heavy offensive load on his back right now with how much he's asked to create and do for others. And we talked about young players kind of go through the learning pains of it. And we've even seen games where it's like one half, Kevin Porter Jr. is turning the ball over 5-6 times. Second half, it's only one. So it's like we know what he can do. It's just like he has to start doing it more consistently. And depending on how this season continues to go, he might have a very long runway to get those reps in to figure that out going forward.
Yeah, I think Nathan Marzion had a good post the other day where I think he had like KPJ had like 580 dribbles or something like that, and Jalen Brunson leads the NBA at like it was not in last night's game, but it was in the game before. It was like 580 dribbles.
Raptors game, the
Raptors 580 games, and Jalen Brunson averages like 440,
and he's like something, and
he's like the league leader, right? Which just sort of like flashes a magnifying glass on something that I think we're all intuitively seeing on the floor. I think here I was just looking at like average time of possession, which just measures like how much literally the ball is in someone's hands. He's averaging 6.4, which is I think like 8th or 9th in the NBA, and nobody else. First off, everybody above him is like an all-star, and everybody above him is also playing 35 minutes or more, and KPJ's at 30.6. So he's like the random guy who is like, clearly just touching it a ton. And this is a double-edged sword, right? Because you obviously are lacking in creators. So like, well, what's the alternative, right? Like give it to AJ Green for a clear out. Like, okay, obviously that doesn't work either. But he has to, this is, I think and not that I watched a lot of KPJ in Houston, right? But like, it feels like probably like tapping into, some of like the, let's just say unproductive,
somebody's got to score,
over dribbling. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now he's been overall, right. He's obviously had like, with the exception of the 2 for 13 game the other night, he's generally been like,
he's been a positive,
super efficient, right? Yep. I mean, 7.7 assists,
in the worst way,
right? 2.4 steals, something like that. He's been like a creator defensively in terms of forcing turnovers. Mm-hmm. So nobody's going to say that like he hasn't been like a net positive. Like I mean, these games would be far worse, without him for sure. But I think the Ryan Rollins of it all is, like they haven't figured out how to play them together consistently. Yeah. And, for Rollins last night to come into the first and third quarters as late as he did, just felt like, okay, that is not the right kind of like balance. And, Ryan has had, I'd say, more struggles over the last, few weeks trying to figure out like how he integrates, what his role is exactly. And so my assumption is Doc's view was like, well, I'm going to try to split them up more to make it a little like more straightforward. Like, okay, you got the ball when you're in and you got the ball when you're in. But like, that doesn't work when you have the talent deficit that the Bucks have. Like those guys are your two best players offensively at this point. And you had got to figure out a way how to attack. So, I think it just requires them to, I think, be very mindful of, who's got the harder defensive matchup. And they have to, I think, just be, especially KPJ, I think just has to be a faster decision maker just when, he's seeing a lot of traffic, a lot of, bodies being sent his way, which some of that's because he's playing well. Some of it's because teams know that he will cough it up and create. And, it feels like most of his turnovers come like kind of like between the 3-point line and the foul line, where it's like he's trying to kind of get through that line of defense and get to the rim. And, it's just poked away, right? It feels like his turnovers are almost always just dribbling turnovers, not necessarily as many like bad pass turnovers. So how you kind of get him to, probe quickly, and when it's not there, kick it, get it to the second side, let Ryan try to do something. Again, easy for me to say here on a podcast. I'm not having to actually provide the tactics to how you do it, but I think conceptually, like, I think it's pretty obvious, right? You have to figure out a way to play them together, defensively, it's not like there's some reason. It's not like they're both 6'1". It's not like trying to play Brandon Jennings and Monte Ellis together or something like that.
Yeah.
Like they're both capable of playing together. And, especially last night with AJ Green looking really rough, the shot just was not there coming back, from the injury. He's clearly not 100% quite yet, needs some time to get back. It's tough to look at the box score and look at Ryan play, 23, 24 minutes when, you needed him, and he actually played well. The numbers weren't like awesome for him. Like he was like 6 of 14, but I thought he had some good moments. He played under control. I thought, had a nice lefty dunk again, a couple more nice lefty finishes. So yeah, I think they have to figure out a way. I mean, to me, it's like those two guys have to start. I think, you stagger them, like bring one of them out relatively early. If you want to take Ryan out at like the 6.5 minute mark or something, like fine, so you can bring him back. But like, he shouldn't be coming to the game at 2.5 minutes for the first time. Like maybe he should be coming in for the second time at 2.5 minutes. So you can get some staggering going. But, like treating him like early season Cole Anthony, like that just doesn't make sense. And again, I know he's probably he's a young player still. He's trying to figure some stuff out, trying to figure out his role. But there's really no other option, right? Like I don't think KPJ in a cloud of dust is going to get you there. He needs help. And he needs to be able to move the ball a bit quicker and kind of get to go over some of the turnover problems. So yeah, I think next game, hopefully they once again try something different than what they did in the last game. But I'm okay with playing big and trying to at least shore up some of the rebounding problems. I mean, the defensive numbers in this game were actually quite good. Again, Minnesota didn't shoot well from
the last couple games. I would say your defense has played well enough for you to win. It's just as you don't have Giannis, and your offense continues to be a struggle.
Yeah, and I made the joke the other day about referring to the offense as like the KPJ Jazz Odyssey experience, and just want to be clear. Shout out to Paul Pressey 25 from Real GM. He knew my reference.
The reference.
I was making a reference to one of my all-time favorite movies, Spinal Tap, in which the fake but sort of real rock band Spinal Tap loses their lead guitarist and then realizes they can't really play anything else, and so they are playing with a puppet show, and they decide to play Jazz Odyssey, which no one likes, and it feels like that's sort of what they've been forced to do here without Giannis. But I think again, you can have maybe some rhythm guitar from Ryan Rollins in addition to Derek Smalls on the bass, in this case Kevin Porter Jr. Just
I don't think
bass soloing for large stretches.
I don't think we can mention the last review that came in from the critics for
Shark sandwich. Yeah, there's a bit of a shark sandwich right now for the Bucks.
There's a couple other numbers to share about what we just talked about with the turnovers and some other things that have popped up, and then where things are headed, right? Because we mentioned the struggles that they are facing, but all of a sudden the company that you're keeping in the Eastern Conference, we'll get into that discussion coming up next. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. And FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can even bet next touchdown scorers, drive results, totals, and more, keeping you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the games move fast, and now so can you. And if you need a last-minute holiday gift or someone keeps asking you what you want, make it easy. Ask for the Everydayer Club, ad-free episodes of this show, exclusive Discord server access, and more. Subscriptions can be gifted through the custom link, which you can find in today's episode description. A couple quick numbers just to wrap up the turnovers discussion. The Bucks were 8th in the league in turnover rate in 5 games, but in the month of October. They were 12th in November. Where would you guess it currently sits in December through 8 games now?
Just the month of December alone?
Just December alone.
22nd.
See, close. Frank, you have a guess?
27th.
Very 26th at basically 17% for their turnover rate.
Yikes.
So, yeah, I mean, it's not just KPJ, Camille, as you pointed out, too, rightfully so. There's other guys, like last night you had 7, I think it was, turnovers total from your front court and Kuz and Bobby, and especially the one that stood out from Bobby on the fast break. It's not exclusive to Kevin Porter Jr. Like, we cannot stress that enough. But you need it for a guy that's going to have the ball in his hands as much as he does. You need that number to come down. In December, the only player turning the ball over more than Kevin Porter Jr. is Luka Doncic. And if you look at it and say, well, I mean, if Luka does it, then why isn't it fine for KPJ? Luka is also rebounding at a higher rate. Luka is scoring more. Luka is impacting winning more than his team. And the same applies right to Giannis. So there's that, which is kind of important. The struggle, too, I couldn't agree more, Frank, and I've talked about this on the radio, too, in that, look, I get it. If you're looking at it and saying we have to break these guys up because we need guys we can trust initiating and running the offense, but the solution isn't to bench one of them. I mean, it is without argument that those at the very least are 2 of your 5 best players, probably 2 of your 4 or 3 best players. You have to play your best players to get, like, we should have learned this last year when we talked ourselves into, it actually makes sense for Gary Trent Jr. to come off the bench and, you know, all these other things. Like, the solution is one of them leaves midway through the quarter and then comes in to start the second quarter. I know the numbers haven't been great with those 2 on the floor together, but to me, that's all right. Let's figure out how to make this great and just maximize playing our best players. That's what's ultimately going to help get us out of this mess that we're currently in. And that mess they're currently in is 11 and 18 in the standings. And I've talked about this before. I'm sure you're both aligned. The most important thing to look at is losses. That's your scarlet letter you're wearing. There's nothing you can do to change that number. You can add to the wins. Right now, the Bucks are basically just as close to the 10 seed as the 15 seed in the Eastern Conference. You're 11 and 18. The Bulls are starting to win. They're 13 and 15. The Hornets are 9 and 19. The Pacers that you have on this trip, and of the Bucks' next handful of games here, the rest of this trip and your first home game back, you have 3 of those against the Hornets, Pacers, and Wizards, who are all beneath you in the standings. You would ordinarily look at that and say, well, here's your chance. This is where you start to build and go on a run. We haven't seen that from the team this year, and there's a very real possibility that we're looking at something like the Bucks being 12 and 21 when this trip ends, and at that point, like, you are down there with the Wizards. Depending on what happens in that Pacers game, like, you could wrap up the road trip with the 2nd or 3rd worst record in the conference.
Boy. You know, like you said, we made the joke of like, hey, it would be very Bucks thing if they win this first one and they lose the next 4 based on how the season has gone. But when you look at the standings and the fact that the Bucks play the Pacers, who are currently 14th in the East, they're going to play the Bulls, who are currently 10th in the East, right in front of the Bucks, and they're going to be playing the Hornets on this road trip, who are currently right behind the Bucks in that 12 seed. And then, as you mentioned, you have the Wizards on New Year's Eve. So, like, you're playing these games right now against teams who are very close to you in the standings. And the disappointing part is that it's a very real possibility, like you said, that we look up and it's 12 and 21. It's, God forbid, 11 and 22 or anything like that at this point. So, and on top of that, too, we haven't even talked about how the January schedule gets so much more difficult for the Bucks. Like, this was the time of the schedule, the time of the year, even without Giannis, given that they had all this practice time, they had time to work on these things and try to turn things around. This was the time to try to really make it up because what's in front of you come January, it gets very, very difficult. So I don't know, guys. I've been saying, like, I'm in the spot right now where it's like I want to believe, because like I can see like there's talent on this team. I don't think that they are as bad as the record talent wise. How they've been utilized and what they've been putting out in execution has not been good enough, and that's why they have the record that they do have. But it's like I want to have hope. Like, the standings are what they are, and it's like we're a third of the way through the season, so it's not early anymore.
Yeah.
But it's still not late. Like, there is still time, but like they haven't given me enough now to be like I have confidence in them being able to pull this out. And that's the part of it where it's like I don't know what we're going to be talking, like where they're going to stand in another week at this point with how things have been going.
Frank, surely you will be the optimistic view here and say it's not as bad as it seems.
Well, Camille, we have to be optimists because we got to talk about this crap every day. I don't, but you guys, sorry. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's this, and one thing I guess I wanted to mention too, like I was looking at their pace numbers, and pace as like a raw stat is obviously
It's noisy,
descriptive. It's like what does it really mean, right? Like if you get lots of offensive rebounds, or you give up lots of defensive rebounds, or lots of offensive rebounds, the other team like plays with it and stuff like that. But it's interesting I was looking at just like the season game log, and they played the pace numbers in the first 5-6 games were much higher than they have been since then. And obviously like all the caveats around Giannis playing and not playing apply here. But it just sort of makes you think, and obviously the Pacers have struggled mightily without, Tyrese Halliburton, who's been shown to be the engine of that team. But, when you think about like, how does this Bucks team, let's put aside the defense. How do they score? Right.
Mm-hmm.
They're still second in the NBA in effective field goal percentage. They're unfortunately bad at the other 4 factors, right? They turn it over a lot, as we've been talking about here on this pod and a lot lately. Obviously the offensive rebounding is non-existent, and the creating free throws is non-existent after being a major strength when Giannis and Dame were here last year. So, it's like, well, what do you do? Right. And I thought the decision-making in that fourth quarter sort of underscores the problem they have, because the obvious thing that you would say, in which Doc said early in the season, we're going to play fast. We're going to play fast, try to, attack early, get up 3-pointers, et cetera, et cetera. And all that's fine and good. It's like, I don't disagree with that very high level thing. But, then you kind of see, well, how does that manifest itself in a game? Bobby Portis, I got to play fast. Bobby Portis dribbling up the floor, horror. The Bobby Portis turns it over, trying to run like a one-man fast break, Kuzma, a much better open court player than Bobby, for sure. Gets, drives late. I think that was not long after Bobby's thing. Maybe it was like 2 possessions later, and he coughs it up. And, I think they were down. It was like roughly like a 5-point game or something in that 5 to 7 point game in that span. So it was not over, and you lose this game by 3. And, you look back and you say, well, man, Bobby had that like rushed off balance corner 3 that he chucked up, which Bobby Portis like pretty much never takes off balance threes. Like, say what you will about Bobby. He has been a fantastic 3-point shooter this year. And it's because he always has his feet set. He always generally takes rhythm threes. He does not take record scratch threes. And that 3 was a bad decision. Right. And again, I'm not generally going to question many of Bobby's threes, but that was he was off balance. He doesn't take or make those threes. And then he turns it over in transition. Kuzma turns it over transition. And it's like, okay, well, that's part of why it's hard to just like play like the Pacers play. That's why it's hard to just like play fast, attack, early offense, because you do this, right? Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Like, that's kind of what happens. And, I think in terms of like Doc trying to say like, oh, we're going to, we need to take better care of the ball. It's like, well, yes, but also like, you have players who, I'm not going to call the players stupid, but they make a lot of stupid decisions. You have guys, KPJ, Kuz, Bobby, like came to mind, you saw it with them last night. Like, they don't make they do good things, but then you cannot trust them to consistently like not also have the record scratch moment, not cough it up. You know, again, we're not even talking about defensively, right? Kuzma also had the bad foul, but honestly, like I'm not gonna give much crap to Kuzma defensively. I think Kuzma has actually been way better defensively than I ever really could have hoped for. So kudos to him. And he's taken on the challenge of defending a lot of really good players and generally held up well. So, so yeah, I mean, this is just sort of like the challenge they have. And again, this is also why, like, you know, I think you need to figure out, like, not that Ryan Rollins is going to be your savior, but you know, like, how do you get it so Ryan Rollins and KPJ and the fast break Kuzma as well? Like, Kuz is you know, probably their best open court player without Giannis. You know, how do you kind of weaponize those things? And unfortunately, there's going to be the downsides of, you know, not being able to. You're going to see bad turnovers and frustrating sort of things, but that's going to happen. The only other thing I'll just say to you, I want to just before we log off. Miles Turner's taking so long to score last night. You know, I talked the last time I think I was on the pod about how I think Miles is like, in a way, like the litmus test for like whether Doc can figure out anything about winning with this group, because I think offensively, again, he's not dynamic, but with his shooting and his size and his touch, you've got to make a more conscious effort so that it's not just, you know, guys 28 feet from the basket, like passing it around, acting like this is quote unquote side to side ball movement that does anything. Like, that doesn't do anything. I thought last night, you know, it was the second quarter, he had those like back to back pick and pop threes against Gobert. And it was just sort of like, where has this been, you know? And at times they switch that, in which case, like, I think that's a reasonable thing to do against Miles, because he's not great at attacking switches and just like taking people down in the post. But guess what? I think if you're this Bucks team, like, run pick and pop with Miles when he's being guarded by a guy that doesn't want to defend on the perimeter. If they switch it, then figure out how to like force him to like rim run, go to the basket, and try to give him the ball. And okay, maybe that's not going to work all the time. But we saw it a couple times too, that KPJ had a nice little pocket pass to him. Miles had one of those huge like tomahawk dunks. I think he had another one where he had a little like short jump shot. Again, like, you have to use him as a roller. You use him as a popper, use him as a roller. I think you got to figure out ways to get him touches, because obviously, like, with the exception of sometimes KPJ and Rollins, like, nobody else gets paint touches. And unfortunately, it feels like the only other guy that gets paint touches is like Gary Trent, who, when he gets paint touches, it's like kind of those like floppy, you know, 2-foot jump stop sort of plays that.
Well, there's one other guy that gets him too, who scored 9 points last night. Oh, well, he is their rim runner.
Jericho's feet touch the paint, but it's usually not with him holding the ball, you know, in a controlled fashion. But yeah, they actually got him some rim runs, and his homecoming game, actually, he fared well. And I've been, you know, hating on the Jericho Sims minutes, not Jericho Sims, but hating on the Jericho Sims minutes
in the pairings,
and they did okay with him last night. And again, I would rather Turner and Portis play 35 to 40 minutes a game than Jericho Sims play 30. And that's basically what happened last night. Jericho played 19. Because I think, again, like, as problematic as those guys have been at times, like, again, I just think Jericho has to be smaller doses. Like, you just can't score with him. So,
yeah. Camille, any uplifting thoughts as we wrap here?
Last thought for this episode, I'll just say this. As somebody who is a very big Prince fan, very glad the Bucks were in Minnesota on the Prince night, where they had the Prince jerseys and all of the Prince sound effects. That was also very enjoyable for me, even when the Bucks were getting ran at in the third quarter. So
Marcus telling some Prince stories too.
We got a Prince story. Yeah. We got
brother stories. Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the kiss sound before the free throw, before the last notes, the actual free throw sound. I love them using the beginning of the scream from Get Off when the Bucks were at the free throw line. Loved everything about it. Shout out to Minnesota, Minneapolis, and Timberwolves for keeping Prince's legacy alive. Someone who was a big basketball fan. So enjoyed that. I'll say that.
I mean, my other Christmas optimism, the Bucks Christmas present to us is they don't play on Christmas, so the Bucks can't ruin Christmas. I was actually hoping that they wouldn't have any other games before Christmas, but unfortunately they do play tomorrow in Indiana. So Who knows? Maybe they might win a basketball game. I don't know.
We'll see.
Hope springs eternal. You never know.
Yeah, that's we've reached that point already here on the season. The Indiana Pacers on Tuesday, tomorrow. I don't suppose it's going to be another charged atmosphere. Like, they got it out of their system, and there's no way they're possibly ready to boo Miles Turner again.
They have so much better things to do right now than root against Miles Turner, right?
Yeah, so we got that you're walking into a team that is really hoping to kick you while you're down, and you don't have Giannis to bail you out with the game winner once again in Indy tomorrow. So that is the next game on this swing for the Bucks. They'll play in Indy. They actually went to Indy straight from the game last night, so they've been there. Maybe they're getting into practice today with that extended time, and then they'll come back after the Pacers game and be able to spend all of Christmas Eve, and I think Doc said part of Christmas Day at home before heading out to Memphis, which, by the way, has basically been like any of the locations in the movie film series Saw for the Bucks the last couple of years, where it's just always been worst case scenario. So that's what we got to look forward to for the rest of this week of Christmas here. We'll be back once again tomorrow with the post game on the Bucks and the Indiana Pacers. That will do it for today's show, though. And as we've noted before on this, thanks for tuning in to this show. Make sure you subscribe and follow so you get all the episodes of Locked On Bucks. You could sign up for the Everydayer Club. You can use that as a Christmas gift for yourself or someone else. You get access to the exclusive Discord server, ad-free episodes of this show. You can gift the subscription as well and find the link in the episode details of today's show. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National NBA YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make that your second listen of the day, NBA Game Night on Locked On NBA. For Frank and Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.